everybody. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. For those of you who are watching and not just listening, you can probably tell I am not at the house today. I'm not in the studio, as we say. I'm actually on vacation, and I know some of you are probably thinking, do I ever stay in St. Louis? The answer is sometimes. But today, actually, coincidentally, for what's going on in our politics today, I'm going to take a look here. So, let's see if we can get this to focus in on the background here. I don't know if we will be able to. Yeah, there we go. So, many of you probably don't recognize the skyline here, but I happen to be in Panama City, Panama. My joke has been that I'm Donald Trump's recon team for taking back the canal, but the reality is I'm just here on vacation. And it's been really nice, and as you know, when I go on vacation, I don't like to engage with American politics. It's silly. It's silly to be checking Twitter and Instagram and reading news articles. I'm on vacation, okay? So for the past 5 days, I got here Saturday, so I guess it's been 6 days now, because it's Friday morning, early. If I look tired, that's why. It's early. I got things to do today. So I haven't really been engaging with politics in the last week. So whenever we're on vacation like this, I like to reflect on something a little different. So coincidentally, because I happen to be vacationing in a place that's been in the news, it might be a little news topic-y, but that's okay. The Panama Canal is pretty neat. I went to a couple museums about it, and actually went through the canal, and I was actually out on the canal in a speedboat for a while, but it got me thinking about something that is kind of interesting, which is this idea that Donald Trump has, where he's talking about Panama, he's talking about Greenland, he's talking about manifest destiny. It reminds me of two things. One, America's place in the world, where I often say, and many people, not just me obviously, but many people will talk about America being the global hegemony. And a lot of people don't know what that word means, but it basically just means the dominant cultural or political force in the world. That's what we are. You go around the world, which I have a little bit, and what you see is the culture is very based on American likes and wants and desires. People talk about European culture and South American culture, and it's all true. But you try walking around a foreign city and not seeing American influences in many of these places. There are some, obviously. There's many places in the world that aren't like that, but a lot of places there are, because America is obviously the global hegemony. We obviously run the world. So it's interesting to be down here in Panama at a time when Donald Trump has just taken office, and you're seeing a rise in this idea that America is the dominant power. He's not shy about it, and I don't think America should be. I think it's a good thing that America is in charge of the world. I've always said this. Many people talk about America being the global police and how it was a bad thing and it's not our job to police the world, and I have always strongly disagreed with that. I think it is America's job to police the world, and I think we're in charge, and if you want to be in charge, it's your job to police the world and your job to make sure everything's good, and if we don't do it, somebody else is going to do it, and I don't want it to be China, and I don't want it to be Russia. It should be America. So as Donald Trump as we are rising back now in this idea that we're going to embrace the fact that we run the world, we've talked about taking back the Panama Canal. And I'll be honest, I never really appreciated the Panama Canal for what it truly is. And you go through these museums, or you really look at it in terms of a historical feat, and it's amazing. It's amazing how this entire thing came to be. Basically, let me give you a little history lesson here. So around the southern tip of South America, there's this stretch of water that's called Drake's Passage. And Drake's Passage, I guess the farther you go from the equator, so the farther along the poles you go, the worse the weather gets. And obviously we think of that in terms of hot and cold, but also in terms of the tide. So going around the southern tip of South America through this thing called Drake's Passage, the waves are sometimes up to 70 feet high. So ships are just constantly being lost around the southern tip of South America because it was very difficult to navigate it successfully. So this idea for the Panama Canal came about, and a couple people wanted to do it. The French wanted to do it, and the Americans wanted to do it, and basically the French got there first. And the guy, I wish I could remember his name, Strauss, I believe was his name. Strauss he was the guy who designed the Suez Canal, which is probably the other most famous man-made canal in the world, in Egypt. And this guy who was the engineer of that project came over here to America, Panama, and he said, I want to make a canal. So what they did in Suez with the silt sand canal is they basically dug a mountain down and then dug through to make this canal. And he wanted to do that here in Panama. The difference is Panama is made of rock. And so the French lost 20,000 people building this canal and made very little progress because there was malaria and yellow fever, and the working conditions were incredibly dense jungle and mountains, and it was very difficult to do. And the French so many people died that they just said, we can't do it. And they basically let the Americans buy this canal access from them. So the Americans came in and had a brilliant idea. And you think about this. This was 100 years ago. The canal was open for business in 1914. So 100 years ago, a guy had this idea. And you think about, we don't give people from history credit enough for how smart they are. Basically, the guy who designed the canal said, we can't dig through this mountain. We can't build this canal down. What we're going to do is we're going to build a dam on the Chagas River, which runs up in the mountains, and create an artificial lake at the top of this mountain. And they basically flooded the entire area of the top of this mountain and then built these locks that can raise the water level. So there's a series of locks on each side of the mountain so that the ships, they didn't dig the canal down. They built the locks so that they could bring the water up to this man-made lake. Anyway, why are we talking about this? We're talking about it because America designed it. America helped build it. There were workers from all over the world, but this was American ingenuity that built the Panama Canal. There was no Panamanian engineer who came up with this. The Panamanian government didn't make this project happen. This was America that made this happen. The French couldn't do it. The Spanish couldn't do it. All these people for 500 years had talked about building a canal in Panama, and it took American ingenuity and American will to get it done. And so when Donald Trump talks about taking it back, when you go through the locks, which I did, and when you run through the system, you see on the outside of the canal, the British and the Chinese they control the ports. And when he talks about getting unfair deals to American workers, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about that. And there is something kind of disgusting about the fact that Americans built this canal, and now the British get to run it. Now the Chinese get to run it. Now the Panamanian government gets to run it. And let me tell you something about the Panamanian government. Every tour guide, every Uber driver, all the people I talk to on the street, unprovoked, I don't talk about this, they have all basically said to me about how corrupt the Panamanian government is, how the Panamanian government's out for themselves and not the people. I think it was something like $500 million a day is made from the canal. It's a ridiculous amount of money. Each ship, there's not a line of them. So around the corner, you can't really see, but this water behind me goes out, and around the corner of the building, you can actually see lines of cargo ships. Some of them as big, they hold 10,000 cars. They're charged $500,000 a piece just to go through the canal, and there's an endless line of them. It goes 24 hours a day. It never stops. It goes 12 hours one way, 12 hours the other way, and it never stops. $500,000 a ship to go through the canal. And the Panamanian government takes that money, and the people here live in slums. And so is it helping the people of Panama, that America gave up control? Do we think that America, at this point in the year 2025, you could say whatever you want about 1914. You could say anything about the Canal Zone, how America ran it back in the day. But do you think in 2025 that the Panamanian government stealing all of the money from the people of Panama, that they would be doing any better than the American government if we ran the canal? Do we think that we would be treating Panama better than their own government? I actually think we probably would at this point, because America has morality, and corruption in America, while it is there, it's not the driving force of our government as it is in many places around the world. In Panama, that seems to be the case. You can't tell. Let me show you something again. So let's see if we can get this to lock on the buildings again. So when we're looking at these buildings back here, you see all these high rises. About 20 years ago, they didn't exist. And now we have all these high rises. But what you don't see, what you can't see on the other side of this plaza over here, are the tenement houses. There are these tenement houses that have been built in the last 30 years. And these tenement houses, they're not updated, they're not maintained. The Panamanian people, they can rent one for about $30 a month, so it's government subsidized housing. And you say, well, that's great. No, the conditions that they live in are not great. They are terrible. But because the government will give them that little bit of money, that little bit of sustenance, many people around here don't say anything. I think America, when we talk about taking back the canal, it's not just for Americans. It's because, first of all, we deserve it, because we built it. Our ingenuity, our will, our might built it. Many people helped. Many Panamanians helped build the canal. This is absolutely true. But the Americans lost many lives building this canal. America, we came down here, and the first thing we did was cure yellow fever in Panama, because American doctors came down here and realized that it was mosquitoes that caused yellow fever and malaria, and we started an eradication program. Panamanians never did that. The people in Panama used to die by the thousands from these diseases that Americans came down here and cured. So before we started building the canal, because we knew we had to build the canal. And so when we talk about taking it back, if there's a legal means to do it, I'm all for it. Jimmy Carter made a huge mistake, and I do not think many Americans supported it at the time. I don't think they would support it now. I don't think many people understand what it took for America to get this done. How many thousands of people America lost building this canal. And so when we say the Panama people deserved it, why? Why? I understand that they helped. I understand it's in their country, but they didn't do it. And so when you say you deserve something, typically it means that you earned it. And I don't understand how America didn't earn it. We earned it through our blood and our treasure. And that's the truth of it. And the other thing I wanted to just say about this, and this is a little broader topic. America, I can't remember where I've heard this before, but it really did stick with me, that America used to build great things. You look around the world, there are feats of ingenuity and genius that just populate the entire world. They are all over the place, these things. You can look for them, you can find them. And it's amazing. And America used to do that. Think of the Hoover Dam. You might have been to the Hoover Dam, maybe you think it's boring as a tour, but look at it as a feat of engineering. And think about that. That dam basically powers most of the state with the amount of hydroelectric power it makes. You look at this canal. The canal is a perfect example. It took 100 years ago. We figured out a way to cross a continent. I understand it's only 50 miles or 60 miles, wherever it is at the narrowest point. But do you understand? 240 to 500 ships were lost in the Drake's Passage. We saved lives by doing this, and it's a gigantic feat of engineering. When you go and you can look at it in person and you see how big the locks are, when you see how big this channel is, when you watch one of these massive ships go through, it's amazing. It's unbelievable. And we did that 100 years ago. The Golden Gate Bridge is, opened to the public in 1936, right? It's 740 feet tall. It's a mile and a half long, and we built that thing in the 30s. We don't build things anymore. We went to the moon in 1969. We don't build things anymore. And one of the important things I think that Donald Trump did, one of the underrated important things in his first administration, is this idea that every government building that we build has to be built in a neoclassic architectural style. Because let me tell you something, aesthetics matter, and building great things matter. Doing important things matter. So much of the government is day-to-day nonsense, bullshit that does not matter. It won't matter tomorrow. It won't matter a month from now. It won't matter a year from now. It certainly won't matter a year from now. And we forget that because we don't build great things. We argue about nonsense constantly, all day, every day. There's no project like the Panama Canal. When Donald Trump says we're going to go to Mars, you know what I say? I say, hell yes. That's what we should be doing. We need to be thinking about the big picture, about the things that made America great, which the things, regardless of how you feel about that phrase, the things that made America great was our ability to take big risks and our ability to win big on those issues. It's our ability to build giant monuments and build huge architectural and engineering feats that everyone could enjoy and everyone can benefit from. And we need to do that. And I think that that's what Donald Trump is about in this term. And let's hope, because it doesn't matter if it's Donald Trump, doesn't matter who it is in office. America needs to get back to things like the Panama Canal. We need to be willing to undertake these big events and get rid of all the nonsense in between it, all the nonsense in the middle that really bogs us down from doing the important things that we should be doing. Don't quit arguing about nonsense and get to work. Start by taking back the canal. Although I have seen a couple hats people have here. It says it in Spanish, but what it says is something like the canal is for Panama forever, something like that. It's built like a MAGA hat. So some people in Panama don't like it, but some of them I thought it was kind of funny. I'll be honest. Some of the people, Panama doesn't have a military, which I think is interesting, but they have 80 different police forces in this little area. As you walk around Old Town right here, you'll see 80 different uniforms of people from 80 different police forces. So they don't have a military. So one of the guys, that's what he said. He said, if America wants it, what are we going to do? And I thought that was kind of funny. He didn't care at all. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. As I said, I'm on vacation, so we're not getting too into the weeds today. Let's take one last look at the city. Check that out. If you've never been here, this place is really, really cool. I've really enjoyed being here. And I'm on the top floor. Ooh, look at that. Look at that water. It's pretty neat. Anyway, we're going to leave it there for the day. I will catch you guys next week. Oh, questions, comments, concerns, whatever you want, just leave them down in the comments below. I'll get back to you when I get home. I'm actually coming back tomorrow, so I will get back to all those comments when I get back to civilization and technology. I haven't even been carrying my phone. It's been great. And I think everyone needs a little bit of a detox every once in a while, a little electronic detox every once in a while. Anyway, I'll catch you guys next Friday.